Welcome, Kelly. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, I'm excited to be here, Melissa and Liz.
Yay!
Yay!
So we're super excited because we have been interviewing some of the most incredible women who work in the mortgage industry, and we're really thrilled to have you be a part of this series. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
And I would love it if you would start off by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself, how you got into the land of mortgage, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So, like most everybody, I did not grow up thinking I wanted to go into mortgage. It kind of found me. And I worked in a bank and basically, and this was in the late 90s, and I had a loan officer that was assigned to my bank branch, and she showed me her paycheck one week because I was trying to make a decision what I wanted to do after college. And I was like, well, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to make that much money. So that's quite honestly how I found the mortgage industry and went into more of like an apprenticeship type program. And then just from there, just carved out a career for myself that's really just shifted over time. I started off as an originator, and within, 3-4 years was one of the, probably top 1% in the nation. One of the things that's unique probably about my personality or whatnot is I am very systems driven. And so I was able to combine that with kind of the extrovert and working personality that I have as well, and just really be able to create, a really good platform for myself. And so, I kind of tell people that my journey in mortgage is twofold. One was I took the achiever productivity path initially, where it was just workaholic. I had a team of 5 or 6 people that worked for me at all times and was producing, anywhere between 50 to 60 loans a month, and just was cranking. And then I shifted over a period of time into what I would say just really enjoying the mortgage industry. Not that my production went down that much, but I became somebody completely different. I was not driven by productivity and achievement any longer. I was really driven by impact and purpose and whatnot. And as I did that, I just wanted more and more impact. And so I ended up in 2011 going the executive route and joined a company that, I've been with since then. And I get to support, a lot more people that are in mortgage now. And I've also been able to write a book called Foundation to Sustainable Success that teaches loan officers really how to build more of a systemized, platform for themselves, so that not only can you have success, you can feel successful, because that's one of the greatest challenges that you do. And I've also been able to, in my mortgage career, been able to write another book called Big Voices, which is in the women's empowerment space. And so that's why I love being with other, mortgage women that really just want to make a bigger difference in just women's lives, not just the mortgage industry. And so I just consider myself completely blessed. My company is a bit diverse. We're the #1 solar financing company in the nation. It's called Loan Pal, and we also have mortgage too. So now I get to play outside of the mortgage space a fair amount as well, but it's where I got my roots, and I'm just extremely, extremely grateful that I found that path along the way.
That's awesome. And Missy and I have some set questions for you, but I have a question for you as a producer. I've been
Yeah.
a producing manager. I've been a producer. That's all I've done in the industry,
Yeah.
which is why we decided to do this conference, because we don't have a lot of conferences for producers.
Yes.
What made you go from this super producing, highly driven to, no, I just want to kind of enjoy my life a little bit? What was the thing that made that switch for you?
Yeah, the catalyst happened over probably about a 1.5 year period. And my mom was an achiever like me. She had created a lot of success with her own real estate portfolio, and she got diagnosed with dementia. And all of a sudden, I saw this person who was capable of handling so many things stop being able to do that, and I had to step in. And then my grandmother, who was really just the compassionate gratitude rock in my life, I ended up dying from cancer. And then I had my daughter, and it was all in a short span, and had some other family stuff too. But really, I had success. Like from the outside, I had so much of it. You know, it was the big house and the fancy cars and the trips and everything, but I didn't feel successful. I felt run down. I felt burnt out. I felt like I was in fight or flight every minute that my phone went off. And, you know, we had gone from a world when I started, I didn't even have email, right? We were handwriting loan applications back in the day. And so I went into this world where I started to see this productivity and this achievement as an addiction. And it really was. And so, like with all addictions, you kind of have to just, you know, choose something different. It's a lot easier to find a replacement. And the replacement that I found was personal growth and development, which benefited me and other people tremendously because I've been able to share that experience.
It's interesting that you call it an addiction because I've said that too. I think workaholic is a habit. Like before you know it, you just haven't taken it. I had a period where I realized I hadn't taken a day off in 3 months
Mm.
uh, because it's just constant realtors call, borrowers call. You don't want to miss the loan.
Oh,
And I don't know what your background was, but I didn't come from people with money. And so there was this kind of rush of making money, the ability to
yeah.
make money and be financially stable that pulls you in and draws you in, and then you just can't stop, and you're running like a hamster almost for a little while. So yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it absolutely. And you know, I don't know what my path would have been if I wouldn't have accumulated the connections and other things at that time. I don't know. However, what I do know to be true is that I was able to create even more success for myself after I traded it for impact and I set stronger boundaries and I started to choose what type of business and experience I had. And it just came with, you know, having a vision. Like, I want to be able to be with my kids, like not be there, like really be there with my kids, if you know what I mean. Like I don't want to be thinking about the Smith file or whatnot. And so it took a lot of rewiring my brain. You know, I jumped into neuroscience and psychology in the consciousness movement early on my path. And so I was able to learn how to be present, which was not something I had ever done before.
No, no, I
Yeah,
see
and I
that
think that
completely.
that's a really important thing to think about when we talk about women gaining wealth and holding wealth and finding their voice in all of the in this very masculinized industry, right? Like
Yeah.
really figuring out how to have this voice and really, I love what you just said about trading wealth for impact and sort of thinking about how are you impacting and being present in the world, because a lot of times we go through the motions of work but we're not present in the work, or we go through the motions of mothering or being with our friends and we're not present in those moments. I think it's such an important thing to think about. So this actually leads
Yeah,
very
and we
well
go trapped.
yeah, this leads very well into our first question for you about how can women producers be brave in the mortgage industry and ask for what they need.
Yeah, Melissa, what a powerful question. Um, you know, when you really think about bravery, it is doing something that maybe hasn't been done,
Yeah.
either for yourself or the industry or whatnot. And so the first thing that I would tell people is that you must step into your feminine power.
Mhm.
And there, this masculine way of doing rather than the feminine way of being is so important. Now we have both masculine and feminine energy, and many people that are listening are like, what's that? That would be your first indication that I should probably dig in a little bit. You know, Allison Armstrong's got some powerful about it, but your feminine energy is that ability to just be. Well, that's what magnetizes us. And when I think about that shift in my business, I used to push so hard. How many calls did I make? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And as soon as I shifted and I stepped into that more feminine, I was able to draw in more real estate agents. And then I set boundaries for the types of agents that we worked with. And so now all of a sudden, I had an abundance mindset where everybody else was in scarcity. Like, oh my gosh, I've got to go have coffee with somebody. I'm like, why would you go have coffee with somebody? You're going to spend an hour and you don't even know if they're going to refer business to you. I'm like, I will do bigger groups of people. I'd meet with 30 to 40 realtors at the same time, because I'm like, my time is one of the most, just powerful, levers in my business. And if I learn how to use my time better, then I'm going to be able to have more, more business. And so stepping into that feminine where you don't have to work as hard, that things come to you with ease. One of my powerful I am statements that I say every day is just, I am a magnet for new opportunity. And, there are days that I'll ask myself, like, what would it take for me to feel more passionate today? What would it take for me to feel more energized about the work that I'm doing? And I'm blessed in the sense that, my company is trying to solve climate change. And so we have this massive mission. So every day I'm like, wow, I'm changing the world. So you've got to find that own thing for you. And when you think about doing a mortgage for somebody, I mean, we're really making a huge difference in these people's lives. And our ability to connect, which women have so innately, is what's going to get you to that next level.
I love what you just said about meeting with groups of people instead of individual people one-to-one.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
like, duh.
Yeah. But it's not the typical path. I mean, if I look at a lot of the traditional coaching companies that are out there, they're asking you how many calls you're making. And I'm like, you got to make them one by one by one by one. And one of the major things that I did in my business is I created realtor coaching, and then I made it very exclusive, right? The minute that you make something really exclusive, like, no, it's not open. Like, this is invitation only for the people that we really wanted to draw into the business. And then we would ask them to bring like-minded people with them. And so I'd have 30 to 50 people every single month that I would pour into, and I wouldn't talk about products. Like, that's the challenge that a lot of originators have, is that they talk about loans too much. It's like, realtors don't really want to know about loans. Like, teach them how to go fish, teach them how to build, a better experience. And that's really who I became in their lives, was more of a business coach and consultant. And then I did loans as a result of that.
So that brings us kind of to the next question. What do you wish someone had shared with you at the beginning of your career that you know now?
Yeah, what I wish that people would have shared is that you don't have to sacrifice your well-being to make these real estate agents happy. I mean, they're human just like us. So if you can just imagine, they're being pulled by their clients and we're being pulled by them, and then our ops team is being pulled by us. It's just this domino of pressure that exists. And I would just say, you got to release it. Like, that's what we ended up doing, is when we systemized our business, it was just, we just manufacture loan experiences with no emotion, like none. Like, you can't, like, so many people get so attached to how somebody sees them that until you let that go, you're going to run in an emotional roller coaster business, which is going to have highs and lows. It's like, no, I'm just manufacturing loan experiences. And sometimes that loan gets off the track, right? Well, that's where my problem solving, my challenge, seeking, I love challenges. I can get in there and basically just share, here's the options, no emotion. This is just what happened. We got derailed. Do you want to go this way or that way? Or, you know what? This is just not somebody that we can help right now. And that's just how it is. So I would definitely say my first 5 years was all about pleasing these real estate agents. It was all about being perfect. And that perfectionism was my prison. And when I got out,
always a prison.
Never going back. Let me tell you.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful.
Perfection is always a prison.
And I think you're speaking to almost every loan officer I've ever known's personal experience, right? Everything starts falling apart very quickly. People get emotional. You stay up at night. You wake up thinking about loans. You're just obsessed with them. So thank you for sharing that. That's huge.
Absolutely. And it goes both ways. I mean, I have a lot of men too can get
Oh, yeah.
really pulled, and then we transfer and we project that down the line, right? So maybe it's our underwriter, it's our processor or whatnot. And that is the one thing, just owning it 100%. If they made a mistake, if anyone else made a mistake, if you own it, then it makes it just so much easier. Like, it's, who cares? Like, take the fall.
Right. And people's reaction isn't necessarily a reaction to you. It's a
Yeah,
reaction to a situation or something internal.
yeah,
And I see a lot of people going, I'm going to call and they're going to get angry. I'm like, just don't approach the call that way, right? Like, just call and it'll be okay. And if people get worked up, it's emotional. Buying houses are scary. It's scary for a lot of people. So just gotta
absolutely.
let them have their emotional ride and just not take it personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I train people because I'm big into the abundance mindset and creating flow. And all of that negativity creates more of it. So I'm like, if you're, I tell loan officers every day, I get calls in the last 45 days. I've never gotten more calls about pricing, right? Like,
Oh
where are
yeah.
you guys priced? I can't believe my company this. I can't believe that. And the more you focus on it, the worse it's going to get. Like, just take, like true salespeople, take whatever it is they got and they sell it. Like, that's just what you got to do. This is a season of volatility.
Are you talking to your loan officers about the margin calls and the difficulties right now with interest rates? It must be a hard environment to be a lender right now and keep up with those. It's a little tough right now. Are you sharing that with them when you talk to them about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say is that transparency is one of the most powerful leadership tools that you can have. And I would tell you, Liz, that we're through most of it. Number
Good.
one, the gratitude that we should have as an industry, that we have government sponsored entities that come out publicly like that and make that commitment to continuing to buy these loans, is
Mhm.
something that we should never take for granted.
Right.
Being on the other side where we have a huge consumer finance, there is no Fannie or Freddie. So if an investor just decides not to do what they did yesterday, you don't have anywhere to place that loan. Like, there's a lot that we need to be grateful for. So what I would say is that what we communicated was, we're taking this one day at a time. We are doing our best. Yesterday, we knew exactly what we could sell these loans for. Today, we don't. And so this is just what you can expect. And, for most of it, we're through it. But what I would say the lessons learned is that a lot of people took in too much business. They didn't shut the door.
Mm,
And if you want to create a good experience for your loan officers and for your customers, you need to know when the kitchen is done, right? Like, the food's it's gonna get cold, it's not gonna get good. But as an industry, we didn't do that very well. We have large scale lenders that took in way too much business. And
mhm.
so I would say it's just a lesson. That's all it is. But
Thanks for sharing that. I was wanting your take on that.
yeah, yeah,
That's super.
leadership, you just do the best that you can. We went from having a secondary team that just did their own thing and very rarely had any involvement, to every morning a couple of our founders were meeting with them to price loans together, because there wasn't that strength of knowing what things were going to be.
Right. Difficult times.
Yeah.
Just when we think we see it all, there's something new.
Oh, geez. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
What words of advice do you have for women who are looking to change companies?
Ah, so what I would say is, the first thing that you have to do is own your experience. Before you make any decision to change companies, you need to look in the mirror really clearly and say, who am I being? What could I do differently? Like, what are the things that I have to, work on? So no matter where you go, because a lot of times what we do, whether it's in business or relationships or whatnot, we run from something because we want to shift all the blame onto the company or the other person. And so we've got to take inventory of what that is. And then really just, if I were at a company that wasn't allowing me to, do business, like, that's one thing. But for the most part, most companies are allowing you to do business. And I would never leave for product, and I would never leave for pricing. Those are the two things that you can never, I mean, it just, I know people that left a month ago to go in and be a broker. And then all of a sudden they couldn't even get their loans funded because the broker that they were a wholesale lender wasn't funding loans. So you've got to make sure that you're leaving for the right reasons, that you've got a really solid business plan, you have a vision for what it is that you want to do, and that you've really just made sure that you've looked at your own growth opportunities. Because most of it, when you see most people's business, they're stuck in the 3 to 5 unit category, and they want to look at a company. No, that's not you. Because trust me, I was doing 50 loans a month when I had to lock loans for 90 days. It's how I plated the experience that made me able to do that, not the company. I just learned how to share with them, like, listen, this is exactly what I have. And I created scarcity for customers where if you want to work with me, this is what you're going to have to be willing to do, rather than the opposite of trying to sell them on coming with me. So it's definitely a time that people are looking at change. But when you look at change, you've got to focus on your own opportunities out of the gates.
So can plate the experience.
Yes.
You want to expand on that, right? Is it setting expectations? Is it, tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, we're trying to create just this beautiful presentation, right, for our customers and for our real estate partners and anyone else that refers business to us. And so, if you think about like in the service and food industry, like you could make food and then serve it on paper plates, and it's probably not going to taste as good. Like it just isn't. Like you want to make the full experience. And so I'm not making the food, right? I've got underwriters and products and pricing and all these other things. But what I am doing is sharing with them. And so if I plate it in such a way that I just, oh my gosh, like, look how delicious this is. This is what we've done with this. And this is what we've done with that. And, really just create that experience for them. They're going to see it much differently. I just believe the core issue that 99% of originators face is that we've always had a scarcity industry. There's not enough business. There's not enough time. There's not enough everything. There's not enough program. There's not enough this. And when you get to that abundance state of like, there's more than enough, I've just got to be really good at what I do, it will change the way that you do business.
Yeah.
What's your best negotiating tip?
My best negotiating tip? Well, number one, I would tell you, you need to learn more about the psychology behind decision-making. And language is one of the most powerful tools that we have. I spoke in front of last year, probably 1,500 real estate agents, and I asked a question. And I asked them, how many of you have taken a communications course in the last year? And I had one person, which I never validated if he did or he didn't, but I had one person that said that they did. And I then asked, how many communication is the most important skills that you can have as a salesperson? And everyone their hand, right? So for myself, I became trained in neurolinguistic programming so that I could understand language and how it really works. And so I would say from a negotiations standpoint, I didn't negotiate. I understood. I sought to understand the experience and the limiting beliefs that my customers had so that I could then share with them ways that they could overcome those. And so rather than trying to negotiate or whatnot, I just sought to understand. And when you learn how to reframe things to people, Liz, like where you're like, wow, I really understand. What I hear you're saying is that your last experience, somebody did all of these things, and that, wow, I really understand how you might feel like you wouldn't trust anybody again. And you just kind of sit with them for a minute, to be honest. And then you start to share some of the value and some of the differences, and you bring them, that peace of mind that they're really seeking. Because when we sell and that kind of thing, it's a challenge, and we're inviting more of it on. I just was that person that was like, oh, you found a better rate? That's awesome. I've traded experience for price many times. And if it doesn't work out for you, why don't you give me a call back? And leave it at that.
Perfect.
Awesome. One of the things that I really noticed in all of these interviews is there's every single one of you has talked about coaching.
Mm.
And I think oftentimes, I'm a coach, right?
Yep.
Oftentimes I hear from women that they don't have the money or they can't afford coaching.
Mm.
Um, right. And so um, it's a common theme among all of these interviews that we've done about coaching and about connecting to understanding your experience and other people's experience. So what do you think that this is not one of our planned questions, but I'm really intrigued to know what it is about coaching that you think is so important for people, especially women in the industry.
Yeah, in no matter what industry you're in, being able to look in the mirror and admit like I have unlimited potential that I could unlock if I put myself into the right environment and surrounded myself with the right people, right? So when you think about just the unlimited infinite potential that we all have, we are going to be limited if we just stay doing the same things over and over and over again. And we know that information is not the key. I mean, when I started my career, I had to go to an event in person, and then I had to buy binders that had tapes in them, right? In order to then go listen to these things that they were selling, and they charged an astronomical amount of money for these things. I mean, look at like Tony Robbins' old stuff. And so, I mean, when you think about how much has shifted, there's more information that's out there than you've ever seen before. I can go to YouTube right now and get a lifetime of free wisdom from thought leaders like Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer's work still out there, like so much information. That's not what unlocks our infinite potential. Our infinite potential is locked when we really put some intentionality behind something. And for most of us, we need accountability. We need that mirror to say, you know what, Melissa, you did great, but would you mind if I gave you a little bit of feedback right now? Like it seemed like the last 3 weeks, that we've been chatting, the first thing that you did was focus on what's not satisfactory again. And we're trying to get you moving forward, progressing towards your vision. And if you stay stuck in what's not going right, we're never going to create more of what you want. And so that's where we have to see this as being like a big piece of creating that life that you choose is having a vision, but it's also checking your ego at the door and saying, I'm just one person. I have never been without multiple coaches at one time. Whether it's I've got a trainer that comes, I have, an intimacy coach that I work with. I have this because I want to experience a deep, meaningful life. And for the people that don't have enough money, the reason why you don't have enough money is because you think you don't have enough money.
Yep.
That's just plain and simple.
Yep.
I overflow with abundance. Like I live a blessed life. I constantly focus on the fact that my prospering creates massive opportunity for me to give back. And so I create a flow of abundance. So if I've got $100 that I make, I tithe 10%. I make sure that I've got my contribution in check. I make sure that I invest 10% in myself, which is through the masterminds that I'm a part of or my coaches or other things. And then I frivolously spend 10% of it. And that's what creates flow, is being that intentional about how you handle your money.
That's awesome. That's so great. That's so good. So, one of the reasons Liz and I are putting together this amazing conference that we
Yeah.
pushed off to 2022, that was supposed to be
Yes.
here, but it's not, is because we really want to empower women producers. I mean, this
Yeah.
really came about because Liz and I are deeply invested in empowering women. And in particular, we really wanted to focus on women producers in the mortgage industry. So what is one empowering idea you want to share with women producers?
Yeah, one empowering idea is that there's a different way than what you've witnessed. So I think the reason why so many women don't get to that next level is that they believe they can't raise a family and be a good parent and be a top producer at the same time. And I want people to step back into, I am the creator of my reality. I get to choose what that experience is. So for instance, with my daughter in 2003, at a season, if you remember, I had my babies in March 2003 and March 2005, which were two of the biggest months ever in the history of mortgage. So, I looked at it and was like, I want my experience with her to be totally different. So she came to work with me for 6 months, and I limited my hours to 6 hours a day after I did come back. Like, I created it, but I had to have an amazing team of people that were really supporting me at that time. And so you don't have to look at the men, because what happens a lot of times is we look at them and all they talk about is how big their pipeline is, or how this or how that. And we're like, I don't ever want to be that way. I can tell you there are a lot of hidden producers in the market that you don't even know, because they're so egoless, they would never submit their numbers to Scotsman or to any of these magazines. They're like, I want to be completely off radar because I just want to stay in that place of just doing my own thing, and I'm not going to bring attention to myself, and I'm just going to continue to, serve my community on a deeper level. So, Melissa, I would just be open again to this infinite possibility that you can be an amazing producer and also be really in alignment and balance in your life, but you've got to put some intention behind it.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
It was lovely. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, and I'm so grateful. It takes trailblazers like the two of you that come in and see a need. When you really see a need and then you do something about it, that's where things just start to improve. And whether it's this year or next year or the year after, is already starting the conversations about the fact that women need to learn more from one another. I think that we're so afraid to share what we're doing because we are in scarcity, and we're like, well, if I tell this other person, I've got a group of 20 amazing rock star mortgage women in the Sacramento area that we meet once a month, not right now, but we meet once a month and share best practices. And I created this group for them because I'm like, we need that. Like, we need to know that you can do it differently.
And what you just really keyed in there is exactly what Liz did with me. Like, she was like, I don't know how to put on a conference, but you do, so we're going to do this. And I was like, okay. You saw that there was a need for a group of these 20 women to come together. And I think that's a great message for anybody who listens to this interview, whether you're in the mortgage industry or not. If you see a need, go fill the damn need. Yeah. Like, don't just sit back and wait for someone else to do it for you. Go do the need.
Melissa, that's a great point, because as Liz knows, this can be a very Groundhog's Day industry, right? And so then you feel this discontent, like this, like I'm made for more, right? Liz, you had to have felt that pressure. Like, I'm made for more. And we've got to just tell more women, you can have ands. I never thought that I could be this and a best-selling author and a speaker and a this and a that. And it's just like, no, I'm the creator of my own reality, and I get to do whatever I choose. And so you've got to just find the right alignments to be able to be powerful enough to make that decision.
And I love what you said there, because this industry will take over your life, right? And I haven't talked to many producers because we've all stumbled onto this career. I've said, if I could find something that would make me as much money, I'd probably go do that, because it can be so incredibly stressful. And so being able to say that I can be a business owner, I can be an author, and I can do this business if I just get some coaching, get some help, and talk to other women and collaborate. We can be anything we want to be, and it can look in any fashion we want it to look. So I love that message.
Absolutely. And I would just, for anybody that feels that same thing, like, I feel trapped because I'm making so much money in the mortgage industry, but I have just changed the way that you're doing mortgage. Like, that's all it takes. It's like, find different things that you really love, because life's just too short. That's what wears us down.
It is. Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time, Kelly.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate it.